There's all kind of stories here, some of them powerful and proud, some of them ugly. Even when we can't see the deep residue of history, we breathe it in, it settles into us.
All over the Bronx, there are toxins in the ground, chemical leftovers from businesses and industry that closed up years ago. How they got here, why they haven't been cleaned up, that's connected to everything.
The chemical contaminations at scores of locations in the Bronx is dangerous enough that the state's Department of Environmental Conservation ordered it cleaned up immediately. These toxic, and in many cases cancerous, causing chemicals are scattered throughout the borough. Invisible and odorless, they seep out of the soil all over low-income neighborhoods, public housing developments, parks, schools, and even community gardens where people grow their food. This is what buried beneath the Bronx.
Angel Garcia, a longtime South Bronx activist and Melrose resident, spends a lot of time in the Rainbow Community Garden.
Okay, Angel, so why is the garden important to you?
The full name is the Rainbow Garden of Life and Health. And it's important because of that, because it improves the quality of life for people here, and it improves our health.
For years, Angel and his friends had their eye on a vacant lot next to the garden. They wondered if maybe they could expand their garden to include the lot. So they started digging into public records to find out who owned it. That's when they got a nasty surprise.
It's basically a problem of contamination, so it poses a health threat.
They learned that the lot next door was contaminated with perc.
Tetrachloroethylene. World Health Organization labels perc a known carcinogen. That means it causes cancer.
Dozens of lots in the Bronx are contaminated with perc. Others are contaminated with lead, benzene, gasoline, and copper. Some used to be factories or gas stations. In fact, there are 59 active brownfield cleanup sites in the borough.
Though active is a relative term, despite DEC designation that they need immediate remediation, many of these locations have languished for years, with no cleanup and no progress towards cleanup.
25 of the 59 sites have been on the DEC's radar for more than 10 years. The oldest one dates back to an oil spill in 1998. More than a third of the 59 sites are contaminated with perc and TCE, trichloroethylene.
The perc comes from old dry cleaners. Starting in the 1940s, they used perc as a solvent, a cleaner, because it was effective. It was less flammable and sped up a time-consuming process. In addition to dry cleaners, perc was also used in auto repair shops, but it was dangerous. According to the New York State Department of Health, exposure to perc can affect the central nervous system, the liver, kidneys, blood, immune system, and possibly the reproductive system. Higher exposures can damage the central nervous system, impairing a person's ability to walk and talk. Even low-level exposure can cause dizziness, headaches, sleepiness, and a reduced ability to concentrate.
As far back as the 1970s, environmentalists have been calling for perc to be banned. The EPA took some steps towards possible regulation when George W. Bush was president and under President Obama. But under President Trump's EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, those efforts were abandoned. In fact, under Pruitt, the EPA narrowed the scope of what it would even investigate as chemical pollution.
Dr. Juliana Mente is a professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences at Lehman College.
Due to historic settlement patterns of where poor people and minority people live and the proximity to industrial uses. This is not typically found in higher income areas. Just in general, it's more likely to have contaminated soil in poorer neighborhoods.
Angel and the other gardeners wanted to get in touch with the DEC to find out what could be done about the lot next to the garden.
Last May, they talked to the DEC and convinced the state to be part of a big public meeting with people from the neighborhood.
And we said, you gotta come meet with us. He says, no, we can't come down home. He says, you gotta meet with us. He says, well, we're gonna hold a public hearing. He says, well, we're gonna tell you about this public hearing. We're the public hearing. We're gonna organize a meeting. And after some haggling, we finally agreed to have a hybrid meeting.
A larger neighborhood organization, Nos Cuidamos, stepped in after that and arranged another meeting with the DEC, this time at Lincoln Hospital. They wanted to get answers for why the Melrose site was taking so long, and they wanted to demand that the DEC open a local office in the Bronx to keep a closer eye on all of the cleanups.
There have been studies showing that environmental protection and enforcement of environmental regulations are just much less rigorous in poor neighborhoods and communities of color.
Remediating a contaminated lot is complicated and expensive. Many property owners put it off or can't get the money needed to mount a cleanup. For that reason, the state launched the Brownfield Cleanup Program in 2010 to help fund the cleanups, providing a pool of funding for property owners. On April 9, 2022, Governor Kathy Hochul signed into law a 10-year extension for the program. Applicants can request $500,000 up to $2 million to address a brownfield site or multiple brownfield sites that are contaminated and hazardous. As part of the Brownfield Cleanup Program, the DEC was supposed to notify the public about contamination in their neighborhoods and the dangers of chemicals they'd been exposed to, but that hasn't happened.
Yo quisiera saber eso, hasta qué tanto hay de cierto, porque de ser así, peligramos todas las personas, especialmente los niños y las personas adultas mayores que viven en el vecindario. A mí me gustaría que nos dieran más información, pues a lo mejor nosotros podemos colaborar y que nos indiquen también de qué manera podemos cuidarnos.
Angel and the people at Nos Cuidamos said most neighborhoods hadn't been notified, and the same is true all over the Bronx.
We have conducted a postcard campaign, asking people to fill out sign a postcard that's been going out to that is addressed to the Commissioner for DEC, Basil Sagos.
Most people in the Bronx don't know anything about this dangerous contamination.
Oh, I didn't know about this information. I mean, now that you're telling me that information, it makes sense because we have a few cases of cancer between my neighbors and some friends that I have in this area. And we need to figure that out. So what is happening and what's going on with this, which is poisoning the area.
DEC would not agree to make anyone available for an interview.
So, yes, we call that number to get an appointment? Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Elected officials also refused to answer questions about the chemicals hidden beneath the Bronx, or what should be done to press enforcement of cleanup orders. For 3 weeks, we sent them emails, we called, we even DM'd them on social media, but none of them would agree to an interview.
Because of the high cost of remediating brownfield sites, in many cases, private owners find a way to transfer the property to the public, so they won't have the liability and responsibility for cleanup. As a result, most of the 57 contaminated sites in the Bronx are now owned by the city. They belong to the NYCHA, the Sanitation Department, the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, and the Department of Small Businesses Services.
In late October, 5 months after their meeting with Nos Quedamos, the DEC released a plan for how to clean up the contaminated site next to the Rainbow Garden. In November, they told Nos Quedamos they were beginning the process of hiring an engineering firm to test the soil vapor in nearby properties. First, they would need to request access to those buildings. The Melrose property has been on the DEC's radar for more than a decade. It is just one of 59 locations where toxic chemicals endanger the health of the people of the Bronx. That's what's buried beneath.